Before I begin this story, I wish to make it very clear that when this incident happened, I was neither sick nor intoxicated. I know what I saw, and I believe it was all real. I work in real estate, hence, I travel a lot to meet clients all over the world. Generally, I am from Sydney, but I mostly stay in LA if I'm not traveling. So this one time, I went to Scotland to meet a high-priority client. I stayed at his place and cracked a big deal. I was on cloud 9 when I booked the return ticket. I generally prefer late-night flights to early morning ones. After searching for some time, I got what I was looking for. It was going to be a 12-hour ride, so I booked a flight of 1:30 a.m. I bid farewell to my client and spent the day in a motel. I couldn't get much sleep because I had a huge amount of paperwork I had to finish, but I thought I would sleep on the flight. After finishing my dinner at the motel, I left for the airport. I arrived quite early and grabbed a seat. It was a weekday and unusual hours to expect a busy airport. I plugged in my earphones and started watching videos on my phone just to kill the time. Apart from, there was an elderly couple and a woman supposedly waiting for the same flight. I was almost hooked up in my phone when I felt a sudden touch on my shoulder. I looked up and saw a woman dressed as a flight attendant standing next to me. She had a huge smile on her face. "Yes? Sir, your flight is about to take off. I think you missed the announcement." I looked around and I saw I was the only one sitting in the waiting area. All other passengers were gone. But my flight was at 1:30 a.m. "Yes, it's 1:15, sir. I was going through the passengers list and saw one missing. This is the only flight taking off tonight, so I just came back to have a quick check." I checked the time and, to my surprise, it was indeed 1:15. I didn't realize how time flew away. I got up and thanked her for her kind gesture. Honestly, I was feeling stupid at that moment. I stood up and started to follow her. The entire airport premise was pretty empty. We reached the boarding gate and saw another woman standing there. I was taking out my boarding pass, but she smiled and said, "Go ahead." I followed the attendant into the flight. While walking through the corridor, I noticed a huge scar on her left leg. It was as if some sharp metal-like object cut her leg open. But the scar did seem old. Another odd thing about her was the excessive pale color of her body. As I entered the plane, I saw a surprising sight. The entire plane was filled with passengers. I have been sitting in the waiting area for a long time and I don't remember seeing any of them. The ambiance inside the flight was absolute silence. I mean, it was so damn quiet that I thought for a second, no one's breathing. Every passenger kept their head down and it looked like they were all sleeping. I felt very weird after entering the flight. The attendant whispered in my ear, "Please, take your seat." I would have screamed if I was alone. The way she whispered, her cold breath froze my ear. I saw a third-row window seat. I guessed it was mine because that was the only vacant seat on the flight. Beside me sat a thin man dressed in formals. Maybe it was his business tour. The flight felt excessively cold and soon, a reeking stench started to occupy the air around. I buckled up my seatbelt and waited for the takeoff. But I didn't see any change of behavior in any other passengers. They all sat like before, quiet and expressionless. I said to the man beside me, "Isn't it cold in here?" He didn't answer, just sat keeping his head down. I thought maybe he's asleep or doesn't want to talk. So I plugged in my earphones again and looked out from the window. The pilot started the engine and the flight got on the runway. We just took off and I could see the ground moving behind me vertically when all the lights started to go off. The emergency alarm went on too and the plane started to shake violently. A huge bolt of lightning took place in the sky and a jerk took place making the luggage drop down from the upper cabins. "Oh my God, what's happening?" I screamed in terror, but this time, no one else seemed to freak out. Everyone was sitting like a statue as if they didn't even care. What the hell is wrong with all of you? I started to unlock my seatbelt, but it got stuck. "Excuse me, please wake up. This flight is gonna crash. Please, we need to do something or else we'll all die." I was panting in fear and flocking like a wounded bird on my seat when the man beside me lifted his face and our eyes met. His partial face was burnt and his left eye was hanging on his cheek. He smiled, showing his horrifying grin and said, "We are already dead." The demonic laughter echoed through the entire flight. Every passenger lifted their face and started to laugh like demons from hell. Their spine-chilling voices numbed my ear. I screamed, "Please, let me leave!" Just that moment, my seatbelt came off and I sprinted towards the gate to jump. But the flight attendant came from nowhere and stood in my way. She was looking like nothing before. Her mouth was slit open and blood was all over her clothes.
"We can't let you leave now, sir."
"Someone please help me! Help me!" I pushed the door leading to the pilot's seat, and what I saw made my skin crawl. 2 headless pilots were controlling the flight, and the flight was burning from the front end, rushing towards the ground at full speed.
"Oh my God!"
Sir, are you all right?" A man dressed as airport security was sprinkling water on my face and calling me. I slowly opened my eyes.
Where am I? Am I dead?
"No, sir. You were screaming and then passed out on the floor. But why did you come on this flight? Didn't you see it was out of order?" I got back to my senses and looked around. This was nothing like the flight I saw when I entered. I found myself sitting on the damaged floor of a burnt flight buggy. No doubt, this plane is under construction. But this was my flight. That woman, she called me saying, "No, sir. This unit is under construction since last week. On its way to takeoff, a bolt of lightning struck the flight. It caught fire and crashed on the ground. No one survived. The flight attendant and the pilot's remains were never found. 70% of the bodies turned to ashes." I missed my actual flight intentionally that night. I still know what I saw was perfectly real. The attendant's ghost lured me into the flight that night, and I witnessed a group of passengers submitting to a horrible death. I don't know if those haunted remains of that flight are still on that airport or not, but don't ever follow any mysterious person if they come to escort you saying,
"The flight is about to take off, sir."